If you were to identify the one or two top issues that are restricting expansion of broadband in rural areas, what would they be?
Okay, I'm ready.
Should we go down the list?
I think we should just go right down the table
Okay.
and everybody give us your top two.
Well, it's tough because who are you talking to is part of the answer too. If you're talking to residents, if you're talking about home-based, residentially based broadband, the statistics are pretty clear. One is people who do not believe that they need it. That turns out in survey after survey, people say, I don't need it, I don't want it, therefore they don't adopt it. Chances are they don't know very much about it. The second reason is affordability. It's too high, and it's too costly. And I thought some of your opening comments about data caps and data usage charges are very on point to that end.
I think there's a lack of understanding outside rural communities about demand. As Mark has alluded to, and I tried to allude to, I think everyone here, that demand continues to increase as efficiencies continue to increase as well on farm and off farm communities. So there is a lack of understanding about where our food comes from. There's a lack of understanding about relevancy here in the farming communities. So I think that's an issue. And then I would share my concerns with the comments made by Sharon that cost is a huge barrier, the cost of deployment, the cost of entry, and then feasibility, the financial feasibility for communities, for persistent poverty communities, for tribal communities to afford service is a huge challenge.
I guess I would have to list my top two is lack of towers and possibly a lack of a properly functioning universal service fund at the current time. I don't want to have we can have a huge talk about that, but there were some reforms made in USF a couple years ago that have now resulted in a huge drop in capital investment on the fixed broadband side of matches 70 or 80% over the last couple of years. It's been documented in Iowa, for example. So that's not a good feeling for us because we would like to see investment increasing, not fall off the cliff. So I would say a lack of towers and lack of a proper functioning USF.
And I think I would agree with that, but just put it a little bit differently. I think there's a lack of funding right now. The biggest barrier is that it costs money to build the networks. It doesn't cost a lot of money to run and operate the networks. And if you can come up with the funding to build the network, then you can have that network that will last for a long time. Just to give one example, the state of Virginia a decade ago realized that the Southern Virginia tobacco region was really struggling and suffering economically because of the decline of the tobacco industry. So the state of Virginia in their tobacco settlement fund poured a lot of that money into building a broadband network throughout the Southern Virginia area centered around Danville. And as a result of that now, not only have they deployed great fiber networks to the schools and libraries and hospitals in that area, but now they're attracting Microsoft. And other businesses are locating big corporate offices there. And so they're bringing jobs, and really it is working as an economic revitalization.
I'll just add a little bit of a rural perspective. We have defined service areas, and I happen to be in one that's a co-op, but Vinton is not in that kind of an area, and the town itself can decide to have its own municipal utility, and I mentioned this in my comments, but the surrounding rural area is stuck. They can't get out of that service area. So I think a defined service area when you're on the ground is one of the problems.